Can the use of data science replace actuaries? What actuaries should do to remain relevant in the future? And how professionalism becomes more relevant in the changing times? If these are some of the questions that bother you, then here's the short video which can try and answer some of these questions. But before we delve into answering these questions, I wish to thank all of you for taking out time to listen to my views. In particular, I would wish to thank Edwini, who is the president of Actuarial Club at Moi University Kenya, for reaching out to me, being patient throughout, and ensuring that this video finally gets recorded. Now let's switch back to answering the questions we raised in the beginning of the video. And in order to do that, let me draw a simple analogy. I have a daughter who is about 17 months old and her name is Kyra. She is at that stage of life where she would learn from everything around her, from whatever she sees, she listens to or observes. A few months ago, she started playing a very interesting game where she would classify any person she sees into one of the following 5 categories. That is babies, uncles, aunts, brothers and sisters. So anyone who is between 0 to 3 years gets tagged as baby. Those about 20-25 years get tagged as uncle or aunt depending upon their gender. And those between 3 to 25 years get categorized as brother or sister depending upon what she thinks their gender is. We've been playing this game for a few months now and she has been getting sharper over a period of time, largely because every time she categorizes a person, and if she's right, I nod in agreement. And if she's wrong, then I correct her. And hence, he learns over a period of time and gets sharper. Well, one fine day, I showed her a photograph of a princess. And she immediately blurted, "Auntie, auntie, auntie." Well, luckily it was just a photograph and not a real princess whom she had tagged as auntie. And luckily we are living in 21st century and not in 16th century. Otherwise, the repercussions of calling a princess auntie could have been very, very different. Also, a few weeks ago, we had traveled overseas for a holiday and she continued playing the same game in the new country. But here people looked very different than what they looked in India. And her classification mechanism failed miserably. Well, if you haven't yet figured out, in this analogy, my daughter is essentially technology, a machine learning engine, AI technique or data science in general, and I'm of course an actuary. Well, I do not intend to demean any technology or profession. All I'm trying to do here is draw out some of the limitations that machine learning or AI techniques still have as of today. While they can learn on their own, just like my daughter learns on her own, they still need someone who could steer their learning, use the results to put them in context, and apply the existing techniques to the newer challenges. And that's where I think actuaries come in, and that's precisely why I think actuaries would continue to remain relevant in the future. While actuaries would continue to remain in future, the question is, what is that actuaries should do to remain relevant and add more value in times to come? And to answer that question, let's go back to the analogy and take it to the next step. In the analogy, we were talking about my daughter Kyra, who is about 17 months old. And two striking qualities that she has, or for that matter, any kid has, is willingness to learn and ability to take risks. I mean, this is how we all learned or graduated from crawling to walking to running, right? When we used to crawl and attempted to walk, we fell down several times. But each time we fell down, we got up and we eventually learned to walk. And that is why I say these are the striking qualities of a child: willingness to learn and willingness to take risks. Now, if you combine those two qualities of a child with the qualities that a matured adult has, what you really get is a matured adult who has fair amount of knowledge, is willing to learn continuously, and has a higher risk appetite. And that, in my mind, is actuary of the future. A sound, knowledgeable professional who is great at his technical skills, communicates well, and is willing to learn continuously and foray into newer areas. That is willing to take risks to learn newer areas, to apply existing skills into newer challenges. Well, the technology in general, or machine learning engines or AI techniques, can work continuously. At times they could be more accurate than a human being, and they of course do not get tired. These qualities combined make them a good fit to do a certain kind of job. And that's where I think that some of the jobs that we as human beings or actuaries do would be replaced by the modern technologies. But that's actually a good news, because if those jobs which can be automated or can be done with the help of technology are being done by the technology, then you and I have more free time to look into newer areas, to learn new things and to innovate. I mean, how do you think that you and I would have time to, let's say, delve deeper into climate risk if we continue to do the routine traditional job that we have been doing for last 10, 20 or 100 odd years? Unless that piece, or at least a part of it, gets automated, we can't look into newer areas. And that's why I think if machine learning or techniques or machine learning engine or automation in general takes up some part of our job, it's actually a good news. But then, can they replace us? Certainly not. How do we become really indispensable? By being who we are and learning new things and foraying into new areas. Well, so far so good. But how does professionalism or ethical challenges change with the changing times or with the changing technologies? Let me try and explain this with the help of two examples. The first one is more relatable. Now, it's quite common to use smart bands, record your exercise related information, pass that on to insurer, and expect insurance premium discount. And insurance companies are willing to offer discount because now they know that you are a more healthy individual. While that is good, but it also brings in the risk around data privacy and cybersecurity. So what happens if, let's say, while you're transmitting data from your device to the insurance company, the device being an IoT device, and it gets into the hands of a hacker? it brings in new risks altogether. And that's what I say, that's what I mean when I say the new technologies bring in new risks. And we as actuaries need to learn them so that we can advise our stakeholders effectively. So, how much do we need to learn them? In my mind, we should know them enough or learn these technologies enough to answer two questions. First, what existing risks they reduce or eliminate, and second, what additional risks they bring in. I emphasize that it is important to learn about new technologies before we start advising our stakeholders on it, because unless we do that, we are not adhering to Actuary's code, and in particular, competence and care part of it. The second example is very different from the first one, but and it's more from my personal experience. A few months ago, one of my clients reached out to me with a request to price and design an insurance product for crypto assets. Well, I've been into blockchain for a while now and understands crypto assets fairly well, the risks around them fairly well. And I was quite comfortable doing the actuarial side or insurance side of things. But what I was not comfortable with was the fact that the project involved raising money through initial coin offering. And given my association with blockchain insurtechs and the fact that I read a lot about them, I knew that there are several frauds associated with initial coin offering. So while I was happy to do the actuarial or insurance side of things, I was not very sure if the project has right intentions, given they are trying to raise money through initial coin offering. I do not imply that everyone who raises money through initial coin offering is a fraud, but the chances increase substantially given the rate of frauds associated with initial coin offerings. And that's where I got stuck. I really wanted to do this project, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I was ethically compliant by working in a project which had to deal with unregulated market and initial coin offerings and the frauds associated with. And that's when I reached out to professional service support of IFOA to seek their guidance. The experts in the panel gave me their views and helped me walk or navigate the ambiguity. And it was easier for me to take the decision after that. The reason why I brought this up was blockchain did not exist a few years ago. Initial coin offering were unheard of a few years ago. So with new technologies, there are obviously new risks that emerge. Some risks get eliminated, but the dynamics of ethical challenges also change. And that's why I think it's important to know these technologies enough so that we continue to maintain the high professional standards and adhere to the ethical adhere to ethics or ethical standards that we actuaries are known for adhering to and maintaining to in past so many years. So if you look at it, we talked about an actuary who learns continuously, is willing to take risks. Now let's add one more element to it, and then we truly arrive at the definition of actuary of the future. To put all of them together, in my view, actuary of the future is a technically sound individual who communicates effectively, learns continuously, is willing to take risks, and maintains high professional and ethical standards. I hope this video answered some of your questions that you had, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. You can reach out to me at sumit@actuaria.in, that is SUMIT @actuaria, that is ACTUARIA.in. Thank you and wish you all the best.